Hi Rob, thanks for doing this.
No worries, thanks Mary Lou for inviting me out on the Georges River today.
No, it's great to be here. So to start with, why don't you introduce yourself and the Georges River Keeper and talk a little bit about the organization.
Okie dokie. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and the water that we're floating on today. So to the north and west, the Darug people, and to the south, the Darrell people, and pass that respect to elders past, present and emerging. So yeah, I'm Rob from Georges River Keeper. I'm kind of in charge of the Catchment Actions program of the organisation. So that's kind of looking after on-ground works. So I run a few bush regeneration contracts. I'm doing weed control in priority areas throughout the catchment, and also look after litter removal. Yeah, it's a big river system with a large urban area, so unfortunately a lot of litter enters the river. So the Georges River Keeper have been around for a long time. I think we're the longest serving catchment group in the country. So currently some of the other programs we have at the moment are education and capacity building, research, river health monitoring, and a stormwater program.
It's an amazing work, right? Because you actually connect with many stakeholders and many different groups, right?
Yeah, so the management of the river, yeah, as you're saying, involves a lot of different stakeholders. So as part of our group, we have 8 member councils that run all the way from Wallandilly's 100 k's away from the coast, all up the entire catchment. Yeah, every council within the catchment is part of this group, so it's really good to have everyone talking to each other, which is really important.
Yeah, well, I can imagine it's a lot of work to coordinate decision-making processes and invite community. You were talking about a program to collect litter or something like that, with education, where you mentioned something like that just now?
Yeah, so we also partner with Corrective Services in New South Wales, so people who are on community corrections orders. They come out with trained field officers to do things like litter removal and help out with bush regeneration. So yeah, it's pretty important for their rehabilitation as well to get out and see the damage that litter and other pollutants are doing to the river, and hopefully it changes their practices as well.
Amazing. And we have, very active stakeholders there as well in the background, a bit noisy.
Yeah, so today we're out on Chipping Norton Lakes. It's almost at the end of the estuary on the Georges River. You can obviously hear the geese behind me. They're actually not native, but yeah, it's a bit of a hotspot for native birds here. So yeah, I've seen a few people out doing some bird watching, so it's a great use of this area.
Yeah, and there's something happening here, right? Something that is happening to manage the river in this space that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I might actually start with a bit of history of this space. So about 50 years ago, what we're sitting on today would probably be dry land. This is actually a artificial lake. So yeah, in the early 20th century it was used for farmland, but towards the mid to end of the 20th century it was actually opened up for sand mining. So a lot of the foreshore areas were dredged and there was no community access to the area. But the good thing that happened was the mining companies had to give over a royalty to what's called the Chipping Norton Trust.
Yeah.
And with those funds, after the sand mining was completed, they were able to rehabilitate the area into what we see today, a lake system, which is pretty important to the community. But yeah, it definitely does need a lot of management. There's a whole bunch of stormwater inputs coming from the urban catchment, which create issues with water quality in terms of like gross pollutants like rubbish, but also things more insidious, nutrients which can create algal blooms and the odd sewage spill as well.
Yeah. So we're pretty close to residential areas, obviously, as you mentioned, but now they have access to this wonderful space, right, to this system, and that requires a lot of management and a lot of time and investment. Right?
Yeah, so all the stakeholders in this area, the two councils, Liverpool City Council and Fairfield City Council, it's a big open space to manage, lots of lawns to look after. There's bush regeneration projects in the pockets of remnant bushland. I was actually at a stakeholder meeting earlier this week. Liverpool City Council is putting together a master plan to kind of inform the direction for recreational use of the area. So there's a lot of concrete pathways that transect the reserve, but they're really keen to kind of connect them, and they're looking at even a pedestrian bridge across the river, which would, I think, be amazing.
Yeah.
Bring both sides of the catchment together.
And it's two councils on each side. If the bridge goes up, could that be two councils, or is it just the one council?
Obviously take negotiations from both councils and funding from both councils. So there's a lot of different stakeholders.
Yeah.
And but it'll definitely be a great outcome.
Can you tell us a little bit, about the kind of the process of transforming this into a lake? Do you know how it happened?
Well, as you can see, or you might be able to see, but behind me, a lot of the foreshores are quite rocky. So in order to stop erosion, the Chipping Norton Lakes Trust kind of hardened a lot of the foreshore areas. So that kind of cemented the foreshore where it is today. And they also created a few beach areas which are great for the community use of the area. And they did a lot of revegetation work because obviously after the sand mining there wasn't any vegetation present. So there's not too many remnant areas that haven't been cleared before, but it's definitely still a resource for the plants and animals that call the space home.
Of course, and it's actively being, improved or changed, right?
Yeah. So councils have a pretty big maintenance budget looking after this area, and I guess the master plan, which I was talking about before, with the City Council, that's going to open up new funding opportunities from the state government to kind of maintain and enhance the assets that are already here.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks. So as you can see, there's multiple levels of government involved in this space to maintain it and keep it like this. The urban space brings a lot of complexity. There's a lot of processes going on, from pollution to recreation to multiple uses, the military use that we might see in another video upriver there. So there's a lot of things happening here, and this is in the middle of the urban space. So as urban geographers, we obviously engage with the environment as we see it, but there's a lot of management and human-made infrastructure that keeps our living in the cities, possible. So thank you.